Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the XFL and USFL show. That's right. We are in week 9 of the XFL. The XFL season is winding down, but the USFL season is just beginning. We are in week 1 of the USFL season, and we're going to cover both, whether you call it spring football, minor league football. We're covering all angles of it. And I think there's still a ton of edges to be had. And that's what we are going to do. We are going to try to find those edges here today. Before I go to my guys, be sure to hit that like button. We would really appreciate it. We are going to, of course, go game by game, kind of then talk generally about the USFL landscape heading into its second season, and then kind of quickly go game by game there. We know the XFL lock is at 12:30, so we will keep that in mind as well. So let me go over to my guys. Bobby, we had another big NBA winner last night. How are you doing, and are you ready for this double spring football slate?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of sports today. We got NBA playoffs. We got MLB main slate at noon. We got USFL, XFL. I'm sure there's some other stuff going on top of that. I know I made a couple soccer teams this morning. So, yeah, it's going to be a full-on the Gen Day. A lot of good sports going on. So it's going to be fun.
Nothing wrong with that. You got to love it, right? All right, Bruce, how are you doing this morning? And how are you? What do you think about this double spring football slate today?
Yeah, congrats, Bobby, on the wins. You just have been crushing everything lately, so it's good to see for sure. Yeah, it's a good slate today. A lot of playoff implications. It's getting near the end of the year, so I'll kind of go over that as we get into each game. So yeah, it's both slates are great, and it should be a good time discussing all of it.
Absolutely. Well, again, we're going to do XFL first because that is locking at 12:30. So we will, in the interest of time, jump right into it and go game by game. 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. So at 12:30 today, let's see, we've got Vegas Vipers at the Houston Roughnecks. Obviously Houston, I think, has locked up a playoff spot, but I'm not sure if Vipers have already been eliminated. So again, talk about playoff implications too, but obviously talk about what plays you guys like. Bruce, I'll go to you first. Who are you targeting in this game?
So if Houston wins, they clinch a home playoff game, or if Arlington loses. So and Vegas is eliminated. So they don't have much to play for here. Just a couple injuries. Looks like Lee is out for Houston at running back. So that makes Aileen interesting there. I know we've played him a couple of weeks, but he got about 30% of the snaps with Lee in there last week too. So he's interesting. Bandy looks like he's going to go. So he did get a good amount of snaps last week, 61%. So I do like going back to him. Looks like Bird took a little bit of a hit with him in there.
Yeah, so, I was on Bird last week.
yeah, his snaps went down right. Quite a bit. So I don't hate playing him. I like all the Houston offense here. Looks like Silvers is going to go a little bit under-owned. He's cheap. He's only 8,700. He did look terrible last week. So yeah, I don't hate it. Look, he's projecting about 15% owned. So I played some of the Vegas offense last week, and with McClendon in there, seems like they ran the ball and just ran clock the whole game. Looks like they're trying to get the season over with. So yeah, I don't know. I think McClendon in tournaments is interesting, but I don't really want to play any of these receivers if I don't have to.
And it was pretty much a split between Lovett and Rod Smith at running back for Vegas, right?
Yeah, Lovett got hurt second or third quarter after he scored a touchdown for me. I had him at like 4% owned. And then he got hurt. I didn't see him again. He's not listed on the injury report this week, so looks like he's in. This Brian Burt kid played 25% of the snaps last week. So, if Smith or Lovett missed, because Smith got banged up too. Saw a lot more Burt than I thought we'd see. So another thing to look at, Sexton is banged up, wide receiver. He's questionable. And there was someone else, Bryant is probable. So he should be in there. But, if Sexton misses, I know Sweeting hurt us last week. A lot of people were on him, but he should see a big bump in snaps if Sexton is out.
Okay. Well, that was a great breakdown. So who are you specifically targeting anybody more so than others in this one? Like, is there somebody like is a core play for you in this game?
So the Vegas wide receivers are really thin. I know I just said McClendon didn't look good throwing the ball last week, but if they fall behind, they're going to have to throw it just a little bit.
Right.
Like I said, Sweeting or Allison would be the two I'd target on the Vegas side. I really like Justin Smith at 4,600 and 91% of snaps last week. Just hasn't had a big game yet, but I think it's coming at some point. He plays the whole game, so the opportunity's there. Travell Harris, I don't hate him as well for a team that's going to throw the ball most of the time here.
Right. Okay. Love it. Let's go over to Bobby. Bobby, in this first game, who are you targeting?
I mean, I've been all on Houston all season, so I definitely got to go back to Silvers at sub 9K.
And low ownership, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that type of ownership against a team that's pretty much probably given up on the season. They're eliminated from the playoffs. It's definitely something that I think is interesting. So I like the idea, too, the fact that I can get Silvers at pretty low ownership. I can get him sub 9K. I can throw in a cheap receiver like Bandy to get a lot of other pieces too, and I can pair him with either Burnett or one of these other receivers. I mean, I kind of lean that I want to spend up on Burnett since he's been my guy this year too. So yes, a Silver's double with Burnett and Bandy is something that I'm very interested in. So I don't really have any interest on the Vegas side. I'm definitely interested in the Houston pass game. Again, Borgie's going to be low owned like he has been quite a bit. I mean, the role hasn't been what it looked like at the beginning of the season. But he had 4 catches last week. He's been involved in the red zone. I think, you can always take a chance on him in tournaments, especially if you're off Silvers. I feel like the volume's not quite there where I love him in a stack like I might have early in the season. So that's kind of where I stand on this one. Houston defense is my favorite defense on the week as well. Vegas doesn't get me excited at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, I wrote an article this week and it kind of talked about it last week too. The running backs just really feel like there's a few guys that just soak up that volume in the XFL. And, it's obviously Abram Smith from DC, Brian Hill from St. Louis. Let's see, we got Devion Smith from Arlington, Jacquez Patrick from the San Antonio. So, Borgie and I believe maybe one of the Vegas running backs, there are some other guys that are getting, like some targets, and Borgie is one of them, so I think that's a great point and certainly would come at lower ownership too. Are you guys both, just to talk about landscape kind of real quick, are you guys both kind of like what we've been doing the last couple of weeks, looking to spend up for one running back that's getting all this volume? I'll go to you first, Bruce.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'm doing this week. Either going with Patrick or Lindsey or one of the higher priced guys. I think, like you said, there's just a lot of opportunity there for those higher priced guys, and some of the matchups are really good.
And how many targets did Lindsey get last week?
I think he got 3 or 4.
Okay, that's good.
Just double check
to help that floor.
3 catches last week. Maybe had more targets though.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, it looks like Bandy is out today for Houston. So
wow,
okay.
He went from probable to out.
yeah, it's nuts.
Changes quick in the XFL, and that's what I wrote in the article too. You can't rely on Draftkings to in the NFL or any other sport. You look at Draftkings and whatever it says questionable out, that's what it is. In the XFL, nope. You better just check the projections because that's what's going to tell you in or out. So
they're not updating the box scores either. Like they don't have box scores from last week either. So I mean, there's like a guy like Blair is gonna might go a little under the radar for box score watchers when we get to that game.
Right. Absolutely. So definitely different. And just, that's why you got to pay attention. And Bruce, thank you very much for updating us on that. Cause it's got to be quick. XFL
it just literally came down. So perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Badette is in and Sexton is in as well. So looks like all 5 Vegas receivers are in.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's move over to the next game today. We've got Orlando Guardians at San Antonio Brahmas at 7:00 tonight. Bruce, who are we targeting in this game? I mean, I definitely know that Jacquez Patrick from the Brahmas is going to be very chalky. But is it good chalk? I like it. I mean, he's just getting a ton of volume and some pass catching role too.
Yeah, I agree with that. His role is just too large. I think about 70% of snaps, probably could be higher, to be honest. This is a game that San Antonio must win to stay in playoff contention, and I think they can clinch with the DC win. Orlando is out of playoff contention after losing last week, so they don't have much to play for here. Just a great spot for Patrick. He's going to be 50% owned. Probably more in single entry and cash and stuff. So
right.
Yeah, that's it's a tough fade if you do. I think a lot of people may be off Dormandy after last week. He is priced up as well. I see the ownership around 15%, which a lot of the quarterbacks project to be about that much owned. So
yeah, it seems pretty spread out at the quarterback this week as far as ownership.
You can pretty much play whoever you want there. Other than Patrick, on the San Antonio side, it's really hard to play any of these other guys. Just their offense hasn't been great. Even Orlando's defense has been terrible. But yeah, it's rough to nail it down on the receiving side. They had Emmanuel Butler listed as a starter last week. He played 11% of snaps. Fred Brown played 79%. He's now listed as a starter, so I expect Butler to get all the snaps this week. That's just the way it goes.
Right, the way it goes. That's right. And I've been playing Eli Rogers literally every week of the XFL season. I think I jumped off the week before, and then last week, what did he go for, like 35 points or something? Yeah, just smash.
The middle of the field was wide open, so that was he just absolutely trashed them.
Were you going back to Rogers this week or one of the other with Latimer? Because Latimer is out. So who are you targeting from the Orlando receivers?
It's rough because he's going to be like 40% owned. It's going to
Eli Rogers chalk week. Yeah.
I think I kind of like Rambo a little bit more. Just to be just be a little contrarian there. I don't hate that. Or even Dan Williams. He's getting 70% of the snaps there as well.
I like that.
If the middle of the field is kind of shut down, could see Rodgers go under that number, have something like 5 catches for 35 yards or something. I don't hate fading that. On the San Antonio side, Landon Akers, he's interesting at receiver. Targets, 6 targets per game. He was banged up for a little while there. Only played in 4 games this year. Doesn't have any touchdowns yet, so that upside is a little capped. But I think he's a good player, and they're going to throw the ball a little bit here. Orlando's defense is terrible, so yeah, he's a good play. I think Jalen Smith is going to step in most likely for Latimer at tight end, 2,500. And he's a receiving tight end, kind of in the same mold as Latimer there. So don't hate him, in tournaments for super cheap.
In chat, someone said Williams. I assume Dan Williams are lower on than Rogers. Yes, should be much lower. Right? Yeah. Okay, just wanted to double check. Okay, Bobby, who are you targeting this game? Are you going back to some Orlando receivers? Are you under or overweight Eli Rogers? Who are you looking at in this game?
I'm going to be under on this game as a whole outside of Jacquez, Patrick, and Eli Rogers for the most part. San Antonio games all year have just been rock fights. Like, just not one that I want to target.
I saw that in the playbook. I like that.
For upside. I mean, I think that you can play San Antonio's defense here. I mean, honestly, you can play Orlando's defense here too. Like, I don't think that either team puts up a crazy amount of points. I think Patrick's role is obviously awesome, and it's a great matchup. He's going to be involved in the pass game. Like, he's point per dollar, I think, the best running back play in the week this week. I know, like you mentioned, what are we doing roster construction wise with how good of a play Patrick is and some of the volume from some of these running backs. I know early in the season we tried to just play one running back, but I'm totally fine with playing multiple running backs this week, playing Patrick and Abram Smith, or mixing Lindsey in there as well. So that's kind of a take from a general roster building construction standpoint.
No, I like that. Yeah.
Neither of the quarterbacks interest me at all. I mean, I could be MMing, and I might just X them both out. I legit have zero interest in them.
Right.
Landon Akers, I mean, he spent some time with the Rams. He's had some pretty solid volume throughout the year too. So, I mean, 7-9, you want more than like 6-7 catches for like 60 yards, but you throw a touchdown in there, or one of those passes he rips off for a little bit bigger gain and gets up to 100 yards or something like that, could put up a nice score. So I don't mind Akers. Rambo's showing some upside. It's not my favorite matchup for him, but I think that he's always in play. Dan Williams is a solid value option, but it's much more interest on some of the volume wide receivers, the defenses, and Patrick for me in this one.
Okay, I like it. Well, we're halfway through. Be sure to hit that like button. This show is, of course, free, but for our Run Pure subscribers, we've got playbooks for both XFL and USFL. We have core plays for both XFL and USFL. We'll be in the Discord, talking through all these late game, fluid moves that we need to make. So if you aren't a Run Pure subscriber yet, use code Bobby15, Bruce15, Meg15, pick whichever one you want. You could get 15% off your first month. And again, XFL, USFL, this spring football, you could definitely have an edge just being on top of the news. I mean, Bruce literally just told you about a guy that we were interested in maybe playing, and then he's out. Again, you're not going to see it in the Draftkings lobby who's in and out. Having projections and news like this is key. So something to keep in mind. Let's keep it rolling. We're going over to the Sunday games. And first we've got Arlington at DC at noon tomorrow. Obviously, DC is trying to lock up, I believe, the first seed, and Arlington is trying to lock up. So definitely some playoff implications in this one. Bruce, you could talk about that and then talk about who are you targeting in this game. Arlington has never been an offense I've gotten off for sure. DC has been quite explosive the last few weeks. So who are you targeting in this game?
Yeah, this is a rough game to figure out. The Arlington defense has been solid all year too. So this is supposed to be a sellout in DC as well. So big crowd there. DC, like you said, going for the 1 seed there with the win. If somehow Orlando beats San Antonio, Arlington may not have anything to play for tomorrow. So it could be just DC just smashing them. On the ground, but I don't know. I think Luis Perez is solid. I don't think Arlington's going to be able to run the football in this DC defense. Mm-hmm. So Perez is interesting at low ownership for me. He starts. He's going to be under 5% owned. He could throw the ball a little bit more than they usually do. I think he's a sneaky play. Abram Smith, he's going to get most of the carries here, but it's really hard to play anybody against this Arlington defense on the ground. He's going to be lesser owned, of course, than the other 2 stud running backs they get most of the volume. But I probably won't have much. I think he's still a good play in tournaments at that price point, 10-6. I don't mind Letty Brown, 4,500. He's looked good in the passing game too. 3.21 yards after contact per attempt is near the top in this league. So I think he's a good value option. These Arlington receivers, again, just no volume, just so hard to play anybody. Everybody thinks of DC as a running team and don't play the passing game at all. But Chris Blair exploded last week, as Bobby was saying. I think he'll be a good under-owned play. I'm seeing him about 20% or so. Lucky Jackson, you can go back there. He's going to be under 10% owned.
Right.
In a must-win game for DC. I thought Brandon Smith looked good last week. Receiver from Iowa, real fast. He's bigger body too. So played about 50% of the snaps, 3,200. I don't think that's a terrible value play as well. That's about it. I don't hate playing the DC defense, especially if Arlington has to throw the ball a little bit more. I have them about 15% owned tomorrow.
Yeah, I think DC defense could be very interesting, just like you said, what they have to play for. That home crowd, as a longtime Redskins fan, there's going to be a lot of Dan Snyder chants maybe about very excited about the sale, sale being it's not finalized yet, but it's looking good. So I think there's going to be a lot of Dan Snyder chants. DC football fans are ready to light their hair on fire that they're so excited. So that stadium might be rocking. Bobby, who are you targeting over in this first game tomorrow?
I'm definitely not going back to my guy Sal Cannella after he put up a goose egg for me last week.
That was rough. I did it too.
I thought with the improved QB play that, especially with, beginning of the season, we were kind of previewing teams and looking at some of that stuff. Definitely thought that, based on the coaching staff, that Sal would be a big part of the offense, was pretty heavily involved early in the season. Then you'd think better QB play,
right?
We might get the ball more, and we reverted back to zero. So definitely not a ton of interest on the Arlington offense side of things. I mean, I think you can look at Devion Smith. Like Bruce said, Letty Brown's going to be involved in some of the carries. I feel like he's a little bit touchdown dependent, but if you need a value play at running back, he's one of the better value plays at the running back position. And DC's been slinging the ball a little bit more and having some success in the pass game. I mean, I think Chris Blair, you're not seeing last week's box score, and he went absolutely nuclear against Seattle. So I think that, despite Arlington's defense being pretty good, DC's offense has been putting some nice numbers. So I think you could still look at Te'amu and double stacks or single stacks. I think Abram Smith is the best running back in the league. So, I mean, I'm still definitely going to consider him despite the matchup. The volume should be there, and especially he's got the potential to break one off. There's always the risk with King kind of getting in the mix and vulturing some carries close to the red zone. So you always got to be a little bit hesitant with some of that stuff with DC. So I definitely don't mind stacking Te'amu. Blair is probably my favorite play in this game as a whole. But as far as targeting passing offenses, my focus is going to be a little bit more on Houston and this next game we're going to get to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Go ahead. Were you going to say anything else? I'm sorry. No. Okay. So
no.
Okay.
That was all I had for that one.
that wraps up that game. We're going into our last game for the XFL slate. If you're in chat, thank you so much for joining us. We know we have a very busy sports day today with, XFL, USFL, of course, NBA playoffs starting. So much, and it's all sports one price at Run Pure. So if you're not a subscriber yet, you get all of this covered. I think there's an MMA card tonight. There's just a lot going on, of course, baseball as well. So ton going on. Run Pure is a place where you can get all sports one price. Keep that in mind. And if you're in here, be sure to like it. If you're watching it later before USFL, be sure to hit that like button. We're going to head over to the last game for the XFL slate, which will be tomorrow afternoon. Seattle Sea Dragons at St. Louis Battlehawks indoors. And I like this because ton of playoff implications. Is the highest total, Vegas total, and on the slate by a pretty good margin. And I definitely think this could shoot out. The past couple of weeks, you wanted to just massively stack one game. And I think this potentially could be the game. I think a lot of people will think that too, but I will definitely have some kind of overstacking to this game, both on the main slate and Sunday. Bruce, how are you handling this game?
Yeah, it's definitely the best game of the week.
Sure.
If you look at the totals, I think it has to be close to the highest. Maybe we had a 48 this year, but it's definitely has to be close. Played on the turf, St. Louis, big crowd, going to be crazy. So each team needs a win. Seattle is eliminated with a loss, so both teams are going to be fighting hard here. I think it's interesting that McCarron's still listed as questionable. Maybe they could be playing it up a little bit, but that's definitely something to watch. Mateo Durant is out, running back for St. Louis, so we should see a lot of Brian Hill, a lot of Kareem Walker, those two guys. I think Brian Hill's a great play again. He has been a little banged up, but I think he's still in play. Wasn't on the injury report again. Hasn't been on the injury report the last couple of weeks. So I think he's still a great play. The wide receivers every week for St. Louis, just jam them in if you can. Those four guys at the top: Butler, Shepard, Aitman, and Prohl. I think Aitman is really underpriced at 4,300. It made me happy to see him in your core already because I had my
I made
core
me
as
happy
well.
to see him in your core. I felt like, okay, good. Okay, we're in together.
Yeah, I saw that before the show, so I was happy for sure. He's looked a lot good, a lot better since coming back from the injury.
He has,
and I think he's a really good play tomorrow. Butler as well, especially if McCarron's in. You're gonna want to jam these guys. Now, if you kind of think about it, what do you do if McCarron is out?
I'll have to pivot because I have him in my core.
Yeah, exactly. And at least we have these Seattle receivers to jam in if it does get to that point. They're still cheap, except Pearson and Gordon. I do like Green here again, going back to him. Big game last week, 5 touchdowns on the year. He's just their big play guy, and they're going to need some big plays tomorrow. You can also play Willis or VC. Both are getting over 50% snaps, around 4 targets per game, and they are well down the field as well. So, these Seattle receivers are just too good. I think this is the game of the week. Lindsey, 7,500. He's a good pivot off of Patrick, as we talked about earlier. Is now listed as 1 on the depth chart. It's just the game to go to, I think, this week.
2 follow-up questions before I go over to Bobby. Number 1, I do have McCarron in my core. Based on projections, everybody believes he is going to play. Correct? It's just more of just getting that confirmation tomorrow, right?
Yeah, they said last week that he wanted to play, and he would be good for when they interviewed the coach, Anthony Becht. He said he would be good next week. So he hasn't practiced fully this week. So still a little scary, but I think
it might bring ownership down even more. I mean, I know it's kind of spread out around quarterbacks, but that might keep the ownership down on him for sure.
Yeah.
I have to be ready to pivot. If you put McCarron in your lineup, definitely pay attention to news right before lock tomorrow. My other question was, I was shocked in looking at your database how low owned the projection is for Aitman. He's getting the targets. He's a big bodied receiver that looks better, like you said, since he's come back, and his price is so low. I was shocked at the ownership. Is there something I'm missing, or were you shocked at you felt the same way, obviously?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as confused. Well. Yeah, one site has him about 8% owned. The other one has him about 6%. So yeah, when I went out and looked at all the different sites I look at, I didn't see much discussion of Aitman, which
I'm very confused by that. So that's why I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything, because in the XFL spring football, you need to make sure you're not missing anything. So anyways, well, good to know that you like Aitman too. Bobby, do you like Aitman? Do you like St. Louis stacks, Seattle stacks? This is a big one here. Who are you targeting?
Yeah, this game looks really good. I think the way that I'm going to go for my main team, it's likely either going to be a silver stack. Vandy being ruled out, that kind of changes the way that I was planning on going into the slate heading into the day. But Aitman's a little bit more expensive, someone that, I didn't have on my initial build, but definitely like a value guy that could definitely fit in there. So I like, even if I'm not stacking either of the quarterbacks in this game, just from a price perspective, I think playing silvers helps me get more of the expensive receivers. I also think that St. Louis has gotten beat up a few times on the ground. And if I recall correctly, that big Abram Smith game where he had 3 touchdowns was against St. Louis as well. So, I think that Philip Lindsay's a very good GPP play. So I'm definitely interested in going that route. Most interested in Green and Jackson on the Seattle side of things, but they run have so many receivers out there. They throw so many passes. It's a little bit of roulette, and a lot of them are in play.
It totally feels like wide receiver roulette. Yep.
Yeah. So the thing is, even if McCarron ends up getting ruled out, we're still able to make some pivots. Tiano has gotten priced up to 9K, but he showed some rushing upside. He was solid last week. I played a good amount of him at his super cheap price tag, and with the game environment. Actually, I think he might have gotten hurt last week.
Yeah, he's out. They got rid of him.
Wow.
Yeah,
I forgot about that for a second. So, we'll see. I'll be honest. I don't know much about the rest of the backups on St. Louis outside of those two. So, I mean, I assume that's going to make it even that much more likely that McCarron gives it a go. But if he is out, I mean, you've got a ton of expensive receivers. You've got some expensive running backs. So if you end up having to pivot some stuff and move some stuff around, you should be able to end up punting quarterback and paying up for some of those different positions if McCarron ends up getting rolled out. So I think from just an overall build perspective, I don't think you're going to be in this terrible situation where you have no pivots if McCarron gets ruled out. So I think full speed ahead if you want to stack up St. Louis. Feel like Butler's a little bit due after the last couple of weeks to get a big game on the board again. So I think I prefer if I can get the money to stack Butler with McCarron, but obviously you can look at Shepard, you can look at multiple options on the St. Louis pass game. So I don't know, this game just looks really good. There's a ton of different ways that you can attack it, and if you go with a different quarterback like Silvers, I think you can still get a ton of exposure to this game. And just from a general pricing perspective, the quarterbacks are super expensive, so there's a chance that they're not optimal even if they go off and you just get the weapons around them.
Right. Okay. Well, I like it. Well, we have completed the XFL breakdown. Before we jump over to USFL, why don't we give the people a quick still our play of the slate. So I'll go to you first, Bruce. Who is your play of the XFL slate before we totally shift gears and go into USFL?
Yeah, I've been so bad at these the last couple of weeks, so I'm due. Give me Marcel Aitman, 4,300.
Love it. Bobby, who is your play of the slate?
Oh, I'm torn between a couple guys. A lot of pressure after putting up a goose egg last week.
You've had some good plays of the slate, though, so you'll bounce back. You'll bounce back.
Yeah, we're gonna go back to we're going with Deontay Burnett.
Love it.
I'm likely gonna be stacking Burnett with Silver in my core this week. I'll definitely have exposure to the Sunday late hammer, which it's not that late of a hammer. I think that game's at like 2:00, but
that afternoon Sunday hammer.
It's the last game, so it's
exactly.
The Sunday hammer.
Exactly. I'm going to go with the quarterback in my core. I think the whole questionable tag on McCarron's going to scare people off. I'm going to double stack McCarron and with Aitman, with Bruce's play. And I am going to do that. And if he is ruled out, then I will just make some pivots because I will be stacking that game up enough that I can just shift things around. It'll be like shifting chairs on the Titanic, but I'll just make changes. So McCarron is my play of the slate. All right, a full-on shift to the first week of USFL. If you watched last season, you kind of, have one season under your belt, and that's kind of, we're going to obviously be basing a lot on that. But Bruce has really been digging deep on research, and he's kind of going to be doing the grunt work here for giving us a lot of the information on the USFL, and then Bobby and I will be giving our takes too. But first, we want to talk kind of just USFL landscape. From what I remembered last season, different than XFL, you really wanted to try to maybe jam 3 running backs. The running backs just seemed uber consistent, compared to the high-priced receivers. And it seems like you can really get some value receivers too in some good spots, if, again, I remember correctly. But Bruce, let's talk landscape. Lineup construction first, then we'll quickly jump game by game because I know there's a lot of sports that we got to lock up here. Talk to me a little about landscape and lineup construction of the USFL first.
Yeah, there was a lot of offensive coordinators last season that were very run heavy, just older men that love to run the football. So and a lot of those guys are back. So you should see a lot of balanced offenses. So running backs are a premium for sure. When you look at the prices, they're not too crazy this week. So, you can kind of jam some. A lot of them are receiving backs too. So that's great to see. A lot of guys that kind of flamed out in the NFL, fell down to this league. So, as we go quickly game by game, I can kind of give you some insight on the offensive coordinator and their philosophy and kind of what they like to do.
Okay, that helps. But generally speaking, you will like 2 to 3 running backs more in the USFL, at least to start the season.
Yeah, I like to stack in USFL, like the quarterback with the receiver or two. Just like XFL. You can find some good stacking options in here too. So Usually 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers is where I go. Even tight ends are in play. There's a couple of studs, like we have Latimer and Canella in the XFL. There's some studs here too, teams that like to throw it to the tight end a little bit more.
Okay. Matthew Moore in chat says, love the 2-for-1 show. That's right. We're covering it all. We're covering all the spring football. We have fully shifted over to USFL in week 1. Bobby, any general landscape thoughts? Last season, did you tend to play more 2 to 3 running backs in USFL?
Yeah, I mean, for everything I recall from last year, it was definitely a very run-heavy league. So I think to Bruce's point, we want to figure out what are the offenses that are going to be a little bit more pass-happy and have some solid volume in the pass game and be willing to spend up at running back. And I think some similarities between USFL and XFL, we'll find, probably throughout the season, some of the teams that tend to be in some of those low-scoring games. So, the San Antonios of the world in the USFL, and just figure out, what are some of those game environments where we would just want to pick off like volume receivers or running backs or be heavy on defense. I think that's going to be the way to likely play it, just from like an overall general lineup construction standpoint.
Right. And that's important to talk about first, just to kind of have that as you're thinking through the way you want to build your USFL lineups. Now we're going to go game by game. Before we do, hit that like button. Again, remember, we have both playbooks and core plays for both XFL and USFL on the site. And of course, check the Discord for any last minute news or questions you may have. But in the interest of time, we'll jump right over to it. The first game for the USFL this second season here is 4:30 today. Philadelphia Stars at Memphis Showboats. Bruce, again, we're leaning on you heavy here for kind of like, the coaching tendencies, the players we're looking to target. Give us a little breakdown on Philadelphia, Memphis.
Yeah, Philadelphia is very, very pass heavy. They were last year. They bring the same offensive coordinator back. They pretty much keep the same core of guys. They played in the spring league. I think they won that. They got to the championship game last year with these guys. And, the problem they have is their defense has been terrible. So their secondary is really nice. They can make plays. And I don't mind playing their defense. They're kind of priced up this week, but they should be playing, a Memphis team that likes to throw the ball a little bit as well. So, I don't hate playing their defense here, but I think this is probably the best game of the week for DFS. Case Cookus, their quarterback, he's probably the best quarterback in this league, passing wise. And his complement of receivers here, he has Corey Coleman from Baylor, from the NFL. I think he was a first round pick.
I forgot about him.
Yeah, he's only 7,500 today, and he should start. And I think he's probably one of the better plays today. We don't have depth charts here, so a lot of it's kind of going off talent or what they did last year. So Jordan Sewell was their big play guy last year, so he's interesting. The running backs are where I like to look at this game. You have Matt Colburn, who is probably one of the better running backs last year. I think he had a 150-yard game against this team last season, and a couple touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns in one game. So he's my favorite running back play today. And this Memphis team was Tampa Bay last season. So in case you want to go back and look at their team, they're coached by Todd Haley, former Pittsburgh Steeler, I think, offensive coordinator. So their offense is going to be pretty good. I just don't like their quarterback situation here. Brady White played at Memphis, was a good quarterback there, but not great, not very mobile. They do have Alex Collins at running back, former NFL guy, played for Seattle, can catch the ball as well. So, I think the running backs is what running backs in this game are just too good. Derek Dillon, wide receiver for Memphis, is probably the best value on the slate. Was Memphis' #1 wide receiver last year, and they priced him at 3,400 for some reason. Rashard Davis is also there for me as well. And sorry, I've gone kind of long on this game, but it's probably the best game on the slate.
No, that makes sense. Yeah,
it's the first game too, so you'll know if you're dead or not after this one. So it's gonna feel good or feel bad for sure.
Right. No, I mean it just like XFL. There's only 4 games on the slate. You could, overstacking one may be the play, especially when we don't know a lot yet, because it's the second season and we can go off some stuff last year, but it's the first week. So make those stands, and I like it. Bobby, from what Bruce said, do you have any leans in this game?
No, I mean, I think I'm more so just going to be kind of following Bruce. I mean, especially if this is the game that Bruce says is the best game on the slate, then I mean, it's also just definitely helpful to be able to lean on all of Bruce's expertise from the college football streets too.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, I think that it's definitely a game that I'll end up being a little bit heavier on too then.
Yeah. And, while cheap receivers can burn you sometimes, at least you're paying a low price. Derek Dillon at only 3.4K seems really nice from Memphis. He could be chalky, but, that is a really low price to get that side of the ball. So, okay, let's head over to the next game, 7:30 tonight. We have the New Jersey Generals at the Birmingham Stallions. Bruce, let's break down kind of what's going on with these teams first, and then who you like.
Yeah, these were 2 of the better teams last year.
Right.
Kind of facing off the first week here. I think they met in the semifinals last year. So, I think the quarterback for New Jersey, Johnson, is probably one of the better quarterback plays on the slate. If he gets all of the run. I do like that they sat out Kyle Lauletta. I think he's former Giant, former Brown.
Right.
So he's out today. So I think Johnson gets most of the snaps. This backup guy they have, Prukop, played in the CFL, and he's kind of like a goal line guy. They bring in just to piss you off and vulture touchdowns. So
awesome.
That's something to watch out for. The quarterback situation for Birmingham is kind of cloudy. Last year they rotated Magoo and Smith. So I really don't want to play any of those guys except in maybe the main tournament if you just pick one. But yeah, I'm mostly staying away there. Trey Williams is out for New Jersey. He was, kind of in a timeshare with Victor last year. Victor had quite a few touchdowns, I think double digits. So that makes Darius Victor a great play today. It is a tough matchup, but yeah, his touchdown upside is always there. Bo Scarborough for Birmingham, just a big dude, kind of built like Derrick Henry, a little bit, both from Alabama. So easy comparison there. But yeah, definitely not as good. But he came in the second half of the year and looked great. So I don't mind him. He's going to be lower owned too, just because of that price.
Right.
And the tough New Jersey defense. So I like him in tournaments if you're going to make a nice lower owned tournament team. He's projecting for like 6% ownership, and his touchdown upside is big too. With Trey Williams out, Kingston Davis at 4,600 should be the backup running back to Victor, and he's looked good. I think he got a scholarship to Michigan, so that just shows his talent there. The receivers, Marlon Williams is the best receiver in this league. When you watch the games, he's just faster than everybody else. Just makes a ton of plays. I think Deion Kane could be sneaky at 7,400, showing like 1% ownership.
Oh wow,
was solid at Clemson. Just a good player. The rest of these guys, other than like Alonzo Moore, he should be New Jersey's number one. I don't really have an opinion on most of them because I have no idea what the depth chart's going to look like. It's rough to pick one of these guys. Birmingham tight end, Jay Sternberger, former
Packer, right?
Packer, yeah. Yep. Former Texas A&M Aggie. He's going to be good in this league, in my opinion. Birmingham like to throw to the tight end quite a bit, and he's only 4,700. So I think he's a good solid play. I love both defenses here, though. I think this game is going to be very defensive, especially week one. Defense is always ahead of the offense. So
right.
I like both defenses here to make plays.
Okay. Quick question. There are showdown slates, especially the ones, the second game of each day tends to be a little bit larger of a showdown prize pool for both XFL and USFL. Would you totally avoid the Birmingham quarterback situation? Is it literally going to be like a 50-50 split, or how would you handle the Birmingham quarterback situation in showdown specifically? I know we want to dodge it on the main slate.
Yeah, it's rough. I think they probably start Magoo and then go to Smith. Like last year, they just basically split. It was so tilting. But Smith has more rushing upside, in my opinion.
That's what I thought,
yeah, I think they just kind of stuck with the hot hand, for drives and just rotated them in and out. So I think even in the championship game, both got some run before Magoo got hurt, I think. I think I'd lean Smith there, but or just fade it all together. Yeah. I think it's going to be a more defensive game anyway. So I do like the running backs a little bit more, like Scarborough or Victor, if you're going to pay up for somebody.
As I say, I like both running backs in this game. Bobby, is that kind of based on what Bruce said and just kind of projections? Who are you kind of looking at in this game?
Yeah, Bo Scarborough was the guy that jumped out at me. Definitely a guy that I get a little bit excited to play, especially in this kind of league. I think that I think he's going to be. I forget what his ownership was looking like. It looked like he wasn't supposed to be super high owned. But yeah, 8,800 is not exactly a cheap price tag either. So I think it'll mostly just be looking at the defenses and Big Bo Scarborough. Hopefully he can get a touchdown or two. He'll likely be in my core.
Like it. Okay. Well, then let's go over to the Sunday USFL slate. We have, Michigan Panthers at the Houston Gamblers at noon tomorrow. So Bruce, break down kind of what's going on with these teams and who you like in this game.
Yeah, Michigan, they were one of the most tilting teams last year just because they had Jeff Fisher, who, oh man, I couldn't watch any of their games. It was really, really rough.
I forgot that Jeff Fisher coached.
Yeah. So they bring in Mike Nolan, former San Francisco, I think very defensive coach. So I like the change at least. At least it's not Jeff Fisher and his mustache over there on the sideline. So I can get.
Is my guy Nolan gonna wear a suit?
I hope so. Or at least like a tuxedo T-shirt or something. That says USFL. I don't know. That would be great to see.
That'd be great.
They do bring back the same offensive coordinator. It was a very balanced offense, but they did run a hurry up. So. The offense is kind of interesting. There's going to be a lot of plays. They do have Reggie Corbin, who's one of the more explosive running backs in this league. Really fast. I think he averaged about 5 yards a carry last year. And I think they go very run heavy and then throw off of that. They do have Trey Quinn at wide receiver, former Commander, great that you may know. I think he played in the preseason a little bit, maybe. I don't know. Small guy, slot guy. So I don't mind him. He was questionable, so definitely going to monitor that. But I think he's a sneaky play if he actually goes. He's only $3K tomorrow. So and on the Houston side, they also have a new coach, bringing in someone named Curtis Johnson. I'm not too familiar. They did have Kevin Sumlin last year, a college coach who was very offensive, but their offense was terrible. They brought in Eric Price at offensive coordinator, who talked about being a West Coast offense and running fullback. They are carrying 4 tight ends as well, so it kind of makes me think that maybe they're run heavy, and I hate playing receivers from these teams.
Right.
They do have one of the best looking running backs in the league, Mark Thompson. He's kind of Bo Scarborough sized, and I think he looked like one of the better running backs last year. So and he's going to be under-owned like Scarborough is. So I think he's a sneaky play at 7,400. Stevie Scott from Michigan backs up Corbin, and he's only 5,300. I put him in the playbook, and the value slot, just because I think his touchdown upside is there, and he looked good last season. I don't love these Houston wide receivers. I do love their quarterback though, Kenji Bahar. He played in the NFL as well briefly, preseason guy, I think, he's very interesting just because he makes plays with his legs, and one of my favorite sneaky plays on Houston is Deontez Alexander, really fast guy. All it takes is one for him. He's only 3K. Sure. He's on the playbook as well, so I like him a lot if you're making a tournament lineup. Again, I don't know what these depth charts are going to look like, but he's one of the guys that stands out for me as a playmaker.
Well, let me ask you a quick follow-up question before you go to Bobby. I remember Reggie Corbin from last season. It was good to me. As you mentioned, the playbook, very explosive, can be used in the passing game. What is the split, or what was it last year with him and Scott?
I think it was pretty close to 50-50.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, I hate paying up for a guy like that, but then, I know how explosive and how he can really rack up the points too. So I did like Corbin.
Yeah, I think Corbin averaged about 5 yards a carry. Scott was around 4. So yeah, Scott's more of like the big plodding guy. It's just it's tough to pay up, but Corbin can rip off one of those 60-yard touchdowns like we've seen Abram Smith do in the XFL.
Right. Bobby, who do you like in this game? I had a little interest in Corbin. Who are any targets for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what Bruce mentioned, especially with Kenji and Mark Thompson, I think it's mainly going to be targeting quarterback and the rushing upside on the Houston side of things, and hoping that Michigan isn't very good again this year, and go with those guys primarily with my interest in this one.
Okay. All right. Well, in the interest of time, because again, we have a lot of slates to lock here shortly. Let's go to the last USFL game, and that's the Pittsburgh Maulers at the New Orleans Breakers. I had a couple questions about the Breakers quarterback situation that I was interested in, Bruce. So break down kind of what's going on behind the scenes for these teams and who we might be looking at for tomorrow night.
Yeah, new coaching staff for New Orleans. They got rid of Kyle Sloter as well, at quarterback. We've seen him in the XFL a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
So they brought in McLeod Bethel Thompson from the CFL.
Okay.
Supposedly he's going to start. We don't know for sure. Again, no word on the quarterback there. Akil Glass is also there. Was a big star in college at the lower ranks. Looks 6'3", about 230 or so. Can run the football as well. And they also have this Davis Cheek guy that's 6K, who played at Elon, who looks like he's pretty good as well. But yeah, just no idea who starts. I would love Bethel Thompson to start, just because I think they're better option, just more age on more wisdom. So I think if he goes, I think he's a great play. On the Pittsburgh side, they're supposedly starting James Morgan, who was at FIU. I think he was very accurate, threw the ball a ton. And both of these teams should throw the ball quite a bit. So this could be a sneaky late hammer game, just because of the passing upside. Pittsburgh brought in Ray Horton as their coach, who I think he's probably 70. He's old.
I remember him as an NFL coach. But...
Yeah, for sure. And his son is the defensive coordinator.
Oh, okay.
Their defense was really good last year, but they did go 1-9. So it's something to look at. I think they lost a lot of close games, but
right.
I didn't like their head coach last year. So they were really tilting. They had so many good players on offense, but they just never could put it together. They did bring the offense coordinator back, John Tomlinson. I think they threw the ball 60% of the time last year. And they have two of my favorite receivers in the league, Bailey Gaither and Trey Walker. Both played at San Jose State. And, they tore it up there. Trey Walker had weeks last year with like 10 to 15 targets. And he's one of my favorite receivers to watch. I don't like Pittsburgh's running backs, so won't have much there. I do think Anthony Jones is interesting at 8,300.
Yeah.
He's going to be owned a little bit just because he's going to get most of the carries. And he's also from FIU, a couple of FIU guys in this game. So, yeah, I think he's a good play. On the New Orleans side, they're going to throw the ball quite a bit. Their coach, their offensive coordinator was at New Mexico State, I think 2 years ago. And, yeah, they threw the ball most of the game, and they had an effective running game. So, yeah, that's what keeps me on Jones here as well. But Adams and Dixon are two of the better wide receivers in this league. And Dixon, if you're not, or Adams, if you're not familiar with him, just Google him. He made some crazy catches last year.
I remember both of them last year. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's such a good player. And I think this New Orleans team is really talented offensively. So I don't mind those two guys. They're priced up, so it's hard to fit them in.
Right.
And we don't know who's starting our quarterback yet. So I just think this game's going to go really under-owned. If you want to make, one lineup with like a game stack of this one, it's very, very, very interesting. Tight end, best tight end on this slate, in my opinion, is Sage Surratt. He's a former Wake Forest receiver, and he just catches everything thrown his way. So
he was drafted pretty high, wasn't he? Like a third or fourth round draft?
Yeah, I think so. He was. I think he's a pretty talented receiver there, and he's going to be unowned, 3,200. So I think he's one of the better value plays. I think they had a highlight video up on their Twitter, and showed Surratt catching a touchdown in the back of the end zone. So I think he's just a receiver playing tight end.
Right. Kind of like the Latimer of the XFL. Yep. Okay. Well, that was an excellent breakdown, Bruce. It definitely helps Bobby and I, because you have definitely done a lot of the hard work for us here to help, dig out which might be the best plays going into this first week of the XFL. I definitely have some interest in Bethel Thompson if he plays in that air raid offense. Bobby, do you have some interest in the New Orleans offense based on their likelihood to throw a ton, or who else might you be targeting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested in former Viking great McLeod, Bethel Thompson.
There you go.
I think he was a third stringer for us for a little while, and had a cup of coffee up here in Minnesota. So
nice.
Of course, all my Vikings, I got to go with the former Vikings. So
of course.
No, but I mean, the idea of getting one of the best tight end plays on the slate in the pass-heavy offense, plus Thompson at a pretty reasonable price tag too. I like that combination, and it allowed me to pay up for running back. So as far as the general path for the slate, I think that's a really good way to start building a lineup is with Thompson I'm blanking on Surratt. Yeah, those two together spend up on running back, and I think that's a nice way to start the slate. I don't know what your thoughts are on that for a build, Bruce.
Do what now? Sorry, I was typing in chat.
What do you think of that as for a general build?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's so cheap too, and nobody's gonna. You're going to see a lot of people on Philadelphia in this first game as well. So it's going to go way under owned. I already saw Bethel Thompson's ownership way down there. So
I like that.
Pairing it with a couple of these receivers is going to be fun. This Pittsburgh defense is solid, but they were good against the run. Pass wasn't very, very great. And they're going to go fast. They're going to throw to these good wide receivers they have. So it's just a great game stack, in my opinion.
I like it. All right. Let's before we get out of here, give the USFL play of the slate. So Bruce, again, thank you so much for breaking this all down for us. I think it helps the viewers, and because people still have a couple hours until that one locks, it certainly helps Bobby and I. So thank you for the great breakdown. But who is your USFL play of the week one?
And that's rough. Let me give out a receiver here. Let me go with Bailey Gaither, Pittsburgh wide receiver. I just think his price is kind of low here. 7K. I think he should be a 9K receiver. He's going to be targeted quite a bit here in this pass heavy offense. So yeah, give me Gaither.
Okay. Bobby, who is your USFL play of the slate for week 1?
I'm going to go with Bethel Thompson. I'm going to go.
I was going to say, you got to take your Vikings guy.
Yeah, I got to go with him. Skull.
All right. I like it. And I like, getting that pass heavy offense. So I am going to go one of the receivers with Bethel Thompson that I remember watching and putting up some scores last week, and go Adams as my receiver to pair with Bethel Thompson in that game stack. So any final thoughts, guys, before we get out of here? Because we have half hour till XFL lock, 1 hour till NBA lock, a couple hours till USFL lock, baseball lock, MMA lock. So Bruce, any final thoughts? And then we'll get on out of here.
No, just looking forward to the day of football, and then tomorrow as well. Just looking forward to it and kind of taking it all in, and bringing it into next week. All
right, love it, Bobby. Any final thoughts for the people before we get on out of here?
We'll have cores on the site here shortly. I'll also have my MLB and NBA cores up on the site.
Busy day.
NBA cash charts up there already as well today too. So a ton of content from me today. With all these slates too, if you get in the RPS Discord, if you remember and you're not in the Discord, you're missing out. Especially with some of these short slates. We'll be dropping XFL cores for these showdown slates throughout the day, as well as USFL. NBA, MLB will have night slate and some of these other short slates too. So make sure that you're in there and asking questions and getting all those additional cores too for those short slates.
Absolutely. Well, you guys said it perfectly. Good luck in your week 9 XFL, your week 1 USFL. We hope you guys found this helpful. We'll hope to see a bunch of Run Pure logos at the top of the leaderboard. So thank you guys so much for joining us. For Bruce, for Bobby, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.